Now,
Thank you.
I wanted to what's your take on the whole open science movement?
Oh,
What's your, because I know that the conversation will also come up over and over. I kind of sit on the fence with it, but at the same time, I see the need for that. But whether or not it will solve the problem, it's another thing. But I like to hear what you
yeah,
think.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. In scientifically this way, I'm a bit conservative. So there's a claim, an implicit claim that's made that these open science practices, pre-registered reports, pre-registered hypotheses will somehow decrease, questionable research practices or increase reproducibility. And I'm not sure if that's the case. And in fact, it just seems to me that it slows down the process in terms of submitting. There's all these extra auxiliary things you have to submit with papers now, all these other things that are kind of meant as procedural stopgaps to the problems. And to me, the problem in our field is not one of dishonesty, because there's this implicit thing that the reason we have all these findings that don't reproduce is because people were lying. I think that's a very lacking in the principle of charity in how we interpret and how we deal with our colleagues. It's most likely that our colleagues are honest and they make just reasonable mistakes. But I think the nonsense in the field is a function of our lack of ability to rally around a small number of high-order theories that will organize our thinking. They will exclude some questions. They will exclude some methods. But we don't like to do that in psychology. It's a field of diversity, more now than ever. And we try to include every possible hypothesis. So I wouldn't be able to, without probably getting in trouble, telling a student that astrology isn't true at this point in the academic game, even though the evidence is overwhelming that it isn't true. There's this sense of we must include. And so the good theory excludes stuff. And it says these are questions that are worth asking, like how does a person communicate with a plant? I mean, you could ask the question, but what value does it give us? Why is that useful information? So to me, our problem is not one of these procedural stopgaps, because I don't think that will solve the problem. Instead, what people do is they find ways around them. Anytime the police figure out a way to catch a criminal, criminals figure out a way to work around the police. I mean, it's a great line from Dr. No, from James Bond, where the criminal says that the criminal has to be Dr. No, the criminal has to be smarter than the policeman because he has to outthink the policeman. So let's not treat our colleagues like criminals, and let's encourage instead kind of theoretical consolescence, a theoretical coherence that will, I think that will deal with the reproducibility, replicability problem better.
Thank you for that take, because I think science have always been like that, especially when there's a new paradigm shift. And I think one of that in the field of science now, it's the whole open science debate. And that's most people would argue that that's a need, that the current paradigm that we have doesn't serve us well. Now we need to take a new turn. And you have a lot of people kind of pushing for the whole open science debate and why that is important.
I think it's nearly a cult, though, Victor. It's nearly a cult, the way in which people follow these things. And what's worse is that journals and editors aren't all on the same page. And so you could submit an article and have a reviewer who is an open science adherent and impose her or his rules on you, and you can't get the paper published unless you follow their version, right? Their perception of this is how good science is. You must have all your hypotheses pre-registered. You must have all your data to be publicly available. These kinds of thinking, and this is anti-scientific thinking, right? To me, the better approach is, look, if you don't trust, if you don't trust a finding that I have, if you think it's wrong, good science is you do the study and show me I'm wrong, right? Do the study better.
I'll send you the data.
You could do that, but barring me sharing the data, because my data, maybe it's a fluke, right? So let's say you don't like a finding that I have. You know what you're supposed to do? You're supposed to show me with your own data and improve it. Science is supposed to be this incremental process, but we've somehow become children, and we're unwilling to be patient enough to say, okay, I don't agree with what Peter Jonason said. I have no personal grievance with him, but I'm going to do a study to show that he's wrong. And that's totally legitimate. But now it's this kind of alarmist Twitter mob stuff where if someone doesn't like a finding you have, instead of doing the science, they just go to Twitter and they say, this is wrong. You're associated with a Catholic university or some nonsense. It's like, that's not how scientists, it's like, where are the adults in the scientific conversation? We've all become petulant children, it seems.
And sadly, that's actually what's happening. I have a friend of mine, just for his privacy, I wouldn't want to mention his name, who has had or still having the same kind of issue, just because I think he had put down his name on some agreement or something, and one of the scholars or colleague in another university picked that up and like went on Twitter and like putting the guy on blast and even questioning his scientific credibility. And this is someone that you can't like literally like you see the work he's done, you can't but really recognize the talent. It's unfortunate.